What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Link Live. We're super excited to bring you episode 3 today. We're joined by Kyle Lim, president and CEO of Power Dental Group. PDG is a client of ours here at Link Creative. We are super pleased with our relationship and partnership with them. They are Illinois' leading provider in dental instruments. You're going to hear all about Kyle's journey through entrepreneurship. You're going to hear a little bit about him taking over his dad's business, doubling profits, having the biggest revenue year they've ever had in history this past 2024. And you're going to kind of get his mindset, get behind his brain in terms of what it really takes to make it in the business world. Funny enough, about, I think it was close to a year now, but maybe 9 to 12 months ago now, I saw Kyle win John Sarasani's show, The Profit. And, it just made a ton of different light bulbs go off for me at the time. And I knew that I had to get in front of this kid. He's going to be a big deal. He's doing some very special things behind the scenes at PDG. They're all over the country, all over the world. They're an international selling business. So there's a lot of value here, a lot of education for all you guys. And I'm super excited for our Link Creative audience to get a listen on this one today. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Link Live episode 3. All right, we're back. Link Live episode 3. We are here today with none other than Kyle Lim, president and CEO of Power Dental Group. Kyle, super excited to have you today. We have a lot to get into, a lot to talk about.
Super
really excited. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to talk about your journey, and educate both of our audiences on what it is you've been up to, how it is, you've been able to achieve such success thus far, and then really just give those kind of nuggets of info and talk high level for everybody on business, entrepreneurship, the hustle, the grind, everything that goes along with it. But there's a couple more key aspects I really want to touch on. Family, Kyle's upbringing, his background, where you got your feet wet within your family business, and now taking over to being and going into probably the most successful year you guys will have as a business in history. It's all super exciting stuff, all very interesting to me, especially, but I know people will get a kick out of it as well. So,
for sure.
Why don't you start by giving people a little intro?
Yeah.
Who you are, what you do, and then let's dive into the background,
for
family
sure,
and upbringing and stuff like that.
I also have, and this is you could include this or not, but I forgot. I brought a gift for you because of this podcast. It's my first podcast ever.
Hell yeah.
So I did bring a gift for you, which I think we'll dive into it. It'll be part of kind of that story of how I came to be in here. I don't know. Does it make sense to put it out? Should I tell you what it is? So you can cut this part out if you want, but
tell us what it is, and then maybe we can flash a picture in there or something.
Yeah, fair. So I gifted, it's from remnants of my history, my past, back when I was doing fashion a little bit, but I have a Valencia hat. I know that we talked about that a little bit, but we'll definitely get into that story, and that's a big part of the journey too, for sure. But we do have a nice little cap for you. Appreciate you having me on here, and super excited to get you that, remnants of the past, man. So to start off, man, so born and raised in Illinois, young buck, Illinois. The area that I was kind of born into was McHenry. So if you guys don't know, or if y'all maybe know, McHenry's a very white town. It's a very country town. There's a mix of blue collar, white collar, different classes, socioeconomic. And I think, looking back and seeing how that shaped me into who I am today, I think McHenry was probably one of the biggest blessings that I've ever had in my life, being able to grow up with the people that I did, the surroundings that I did, and it really formed me into the man that I am now. So a huge shout out to MacTown. And, from the beginning, I always knew that I was a little bit different in the sense of physically, obviously. I wasn't what I look like right now, pretty good. But back in the day, I was a little bit chubbier. I was definitely one of the only Asian people in the entire town, I would say.
Yeah.
And as I was growing up, it was a big hindrance for myself. And I think, as I was growing up, I got bullied, I got picked on. And that was a part of my life where, it's almost like blacked out now. But I started to realize, man, like, people aren't nice. You know what I mean? Like, people aren't nice. But
what age do you remember that falling within?
That was early, bro. Like, early as hell. That was like maybe when I was in like second grade, third grade, around that range is when I started really seeing it. And I think there's a couple outlets that I took to try and avoid being bullied and avoid being in the spotlight. But as time went on, as time progressed, I started to realize, like, look, people are going to know you whether you like it or not. And you can either use it as a positive, or you could be part of my language, but be a bitch and hide behind the shadows and try and be this person that, you're not supposed to be, and I think what I realized was, if people are going to remember who I am, I'm going to make sure they remember me for the right reasons. And that's really what started in high school, is kind of when I started getting that mindset. So before then I was involved in a little bit of sports, really hit it hard in high school. So was involved with football, did track and field. I played a little bit of wrestling, or did a little wrestling here. Really got involved with the community, got involved with high school, different, sporting and different organizations, that sort of thing. But really adopted that idea of, look, people are going to know you for one way or another. Might as well be a good reason. So,
right.
But that's kind of where it really started for me, I think, in terms of kind of my path, truly. And yeah, man, from there, it's been fucking rap since,
Oh yeah.
So
talk about a little bit about your upbringing, your family, in that history.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how PDG Power Dental started, and then when that inflection point came that, okay, this is maybe something that I want to be involved with long term. I want to start to maybe take over and steer the ship. But talk about that upbringing, sort of some of the values that your father maybe instilled in you that set you on that track.
Definitely. I think the interesting part about, my upbringing, although my town was, a very blue collar, white collar, very Americanized town, I would say that my upbringing was very culturally, Korean. And so it was an interesting dichotomy of that when you look at it that way, because, when I'm at home, it's almost a completely different world than what it is when I'm out and about with my friends. And I think, again, that's the reason why I was able to kind of turn into the person that I am today. I would say that with the Korean culture, I think Korean culture now is like, it's popping off. You know what I mean? Like, people love Korean culture, Korean shows, Korean food. But what people don't always see is the traditional aspect of Korean culture. And that was something that I think day one was instilled by my parents. My parents immigrated. My dad immigrated from South Korea when he was about 18 years old,
right.
With no really intention other than trying to make it for his family. And any first generation immigrant, I think your parents as well, but any first generation immigrant, parents, as a son or a daughter, how much work that they put in to be able to set you up for success, with the only intent being, I want to make sure that my descendants and my lineage are set, right? And I'll sacrifice my dreams to be able to go and do that. And so I think as I grew up, my dad worked a bunch of odd jobs when he first came to the States. He was a tow truck driver. Dude was living off of Big Macs, like buy 30 Big Macs because they were like 99 cents back in the day. Stuff them in the fridge, freeze them, just eat that. Dude had horrible acne, like just a very, very grit and grind mentality, right? Like a lot of first generation immigrants will be. Worked his way around and eventually started finding his way into dental instruments. And the way that kind of got established was, my dad's sister at the time was already in the States. And my dad didn't want to kind of take a family business as a handout, even though he knew my sister was working in that space. But then linked it up with his sister, and ended up being a company that they did dental instrument servicing at. So they were sharpening instruments, they were retipping instruments, they were trading instruments in, they were manufacturing there, and that's where my dad got the first glimpse of dental instrument manufacturing. And he worked his way up in that business and ended up becoming one of the lead techs there, teaching a lot of the people who work with us now, teaching a lot of them at the very beginning when they came to the States. And so, he ended up becoming the best at what he was in that space as much as he could. And the problem with Korean culture too, and also just small businesses in general, when people try and push against the agenda or push against the norm, sometimes in small business, sometimes owners don't like it, depending on what type of owner you got.
Yeah.
And so with my dad, he got to the top very quickly, but when he tried to instill new principles or new ways to do things because it was going to be more efficient and better for the business overall, small business owner, my dad's sister, and also my dad's sister's husband, white guy, was very just, this is not going to fly, and we're going to do it my way. This is the way we've done it. It doesn't matter what you think, this has worked for us, period. Right. So, ended up going in, just bashing heads. And then eventually my dad just said, you know what, fuck it, I can do it better than you guys. So he left, took out a loan, bought a building. And it was a huge fucking risk on his part. And I remember this when I was super, super young. I had to be like maybe 3 or 4, but like I do remember this moment where I was with my dad and my mom, and I'm looking up at this building when my dad first bought it, and my dad's super, super happy. But I know, like, when I look back in that moment, that I also know how much of how nerve-wracking that was for him.
For sure.
Looking at, from my perspective
Is
now,
that the same building you guys are in now, or is it a different building before?
So that was a different building. That was the original building was actually bought in McCullum Lake, and so that was near McHenry. And we lived in Lakemore at the time when we kind of first initiated, or he first initiated that whole side. But it was in McCullum Lake, and so that's when that whole journey started for him. And at the beginning, man, this guy was, when you're a kid, you don't really understand it, like, oh, dad's not home. Or
and what age were you when that was first starting?
I was probably
when he got the new building, and
when it was like the very, very beginning. It was probably when I was like 3 or 4. Like I was young.
Okay.
I was young, but I do remember those moments like throughout my childhood, like very early on. Like, I remember that moment when my dad bought it and we're outside that building. I remember the moment when, he started, actually starting traveling a lot more, and, he started getting his first, $1,000, those key moments throughout. I remember a lot of positive, but I think throughout my childhood, I remember a lot of negative too, and with him, the sad part was all he knows, and this, again, the same thing with a lot of first generation, like he knows how to work, right? Like these motherfuckers know how to work, but he will outwork anybody in this room, you know what I mean? But
sure,
what they can't do is the conversation. What they might not be able to focus in on is the marketing. What they might not be able to focus on is the infrastructure, and the culture and these things that are super important for a business to scale. He just didn't have the time because he was just trying not to go under, right? And he was trying to provide for his family.
Yep.
So, when he got to the point where he started building this business, my dad was just out of my life a lot of the times. And, during my life when I was growing up, I was always like, man, like, where the fuck is my dad? Like all these other dads with my friends, like their dads are there, they're playing catch, doing the whole, classic American dream type shit. And I'm over here just fucking playing in the yard by myself, like doing my own thing, figuring out my own way. But thankfully, like, thank God. And, I thank God to this day, like my dad's principle, and this is very Korean culture too. My dad's principle was, look, I'm going to make money for the family. You're going to stay home with the kids, and you're going to help grow them and teach them good lessons and help nurture them and care for them. Right.
Sure.
Ended up being a really, really good move. Because I think without that, if my mom and my dad were both working, I don't know what the fuck I could have been. Like I probably would have been a shithead, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So my mom was there to be able to help nurture, be that void or fill that void for us, both me and my sister. I have an older sister. She's about 3 years older than me. She works with me in the business now. But, that was a key role in my life, a key person in my life. And, as I was continuing to grow my sort of personal and professional development, and just throughout my youth especially, I really leaned on a lot of my friends in McHenry, in Lakemore, and I leaned on their parents, and I saw their fathers as role models, and because I never really understood the extent of what my dad was really doing,
sure,
other than busting his ass, traveling, he'd be at a show, whatever, and that's pretty much it, So there was some resentment, I think, when I was growing up, but again, Korean culture, the whole like they don't show emotion, like they're very like head down, work, that's it, like don't say I love you, yeah, exactly. So.
No,
yeah,
I could relate.
It was a pretty interesting upbringing for sure. But I think, again, when I was growing up, the interesting part was, I got to see the way that the Korean household was, but then I was hanging out with my friends and I would see how a traditional American household was, and I realized, man, like the way that we do things over here are a little bit different than the way they do things over there. Not to say that my way or your way is better, but that's when my mind started opening up, and I think I started to really understand, like, man, like this is what I want. This is what I don't want, from a family, a household, a whatever. And again, my mom just kept instilling very good principles into me. She kept me very accountable when I was growing up. My sister was definitely, she took a brunt of a lot of it because she was older. She was a female. And I think my sister to this day, she was the one that was the trailblazer for our family for sure. Going through college for the first time in the family, going through high school for the first time in the family, like setting the standard. And my sister doesn't know this, but she is one of the biggest reasons why. She's one of my biggest role models still, to this day. Even though, my position, my title is bigger or higher, that means nothing to me, So she was, again, a big reason, a big part to the reason why I am who I am too. And, without her, without my mom, without all these moments in my life happening and things happening a certain way, again, it doesn't spit out you or me the way that we are right now. So it's just, crazy.
100%.
So, yeah, but
100%. Well, I love it. 100% relatable. You could definitely show and see in the way that you show up now for your people, for the team, the way you support our team and what we're doing in our relationship. You could see the story that you just shared and kind of how that's transpired. I also want to touch on, I know you played college football. For people who don't know, I want to learn about, like, when you were in college, what did you think you were going to do before taking over PDG? Did you know throughout? Did you have an epiphany type moment? But let's talk about like pre-taking over the business versus actually taking over, and what you thought you were going to do prior, what you thought you wanted to do at the time because you were young.
Yeah, for sure. So I think when I was growing up, it was one of those things where I was very creative in what I wanted to do, in the sense of like I jumped ship all the time. I was like, one day, the garbage man would come by and I'd be like, fuck yeah, I want to be a garbage man. That's sick. They get to ride on the side of a car, fucking work outside. That's awesome. Another day, I'm like, man, it'd be sweet to be a restaurant owner. Like, so, it'd be awesome to be a comedian. So I had, I think a positive factor of the way that my brain works is I was definitely very creative, and I get it from my dad, actually. My dad, I think, is a lot more creative than my mom. But I always had this idea of, man, like, it'd be so cool to do these things. And, every week it would switch. And then when you start getting older, you have to realize, like, man, I got to figure my fucking life out. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when I got to the point where I had to go to college, I was like, one, do I go to college, right, was the question. I think that was always something that I knew I kind of needed to go to if I wanted to, take the next steps in my career, which, looking back now, I don't think is the case nowadays, especially nowadays. But when I originally went into college, I was like, man, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be, not because, stereotypical Asian, but because I thought that being able to help serve others, the best form of doing that is being a doctor.
Sure.
Or being my dad always wanted me to be a dentist, right? A periodontist was specifically what he wanted me to be, because he plugged me out with some instruments, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but I ended up going in, wanting to be a doctor, and I realized I took all the courses I needed to at the beginning, realized super, super quick, especially while I was juggling football too at that
Sure.
time, realized very quickly that I cannot do both sports and try and do all these extra classes at the same time. And then I also realized I fucking suck at biology. Like, I'm just ass at biology, because biology is just so much memorization. Like, you have to remember, this random thing happens, and then that random thing touches this thing, and then all of a sudden this random process, all these random just pulling out from the thin air type, things are happening, right? Yeah. So what I was always good at, what I realized was, and I recommend this to anybody in college, like, jump around a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't be afraid to go to community college right away. Have 2 years of your life where you're figuring your shit out, and then when you're ready to rock and roll for the big leagues, like, make the investment, then hop over to a big school, because now you know exactly what you want to be. I think too many people, especially in today's day and age, like, especially younger people, like, they feel like they need to know, or they feel like they're behind if they don't know exactly what they want to be as soon as they're ready to go to college. Like, yeah. And that mindset, I think, is just fucked. It's just a societal thing that, people have created. But, so I fucking sucked at biology. And I remember in college, or in high school, I always gravitated towards chemistry. So I liked chemistry, and I never really knew why, but I know now it's because it's very analytical. It's very process based. It's, if this thing happens, then these things will happen for certain because of this reason, right? So it's very logical. And so for me, I ended up switching my degree a couple times, didn't solidify my major until my junior year, which is hella late. But it just so happened, I went to comm, I went to business, I did marketing for a little bit. And then my advisor was like, Kyle, like, you got to figure, like, you got to settle down. Exactly. Man. Otherwise you're not going to graduate on time. I'm like, fuck, like, what do I need? What class do I got to take to be able to finish off? She's like, the only track that will allow you to graduate is if you continue doing chemistry. So I ended up doing chemistry, and I finished with a degree in chemistry from Lake Forest. And, during college, the one thing I will say about college is you meet so many fucking people and your network just becomes so expansive, and you get to experiment with things, and your mind starts growing, and it's such a key development stage for people. And if I didn't go to college, again, I don't think I'd be the person that I am. And so that's the one positive aspect of college that I really do like, right? And I think during those 4 years that I was there, my perspective of life changed so much. And it made me realize, I studied abroad, I went to London, I went to Spain, I went to Barcelona, like I did all these things, like I drank like hard, like just all these experiences in my life that, you should do at one point, while you're growing up, I did. And, I'm sure it was probably the same type of thing for you too, like U of I is such a fun ass school, but what I respect about U of I is that they're a very work hard, play hard mentality. Like you want to get in U of I, you have to be really fucking smart and you have to be really fucking dialed in. You can't just be a fuck off, even though there's people like that. But, right. I'll bet that was a key point in your life too, where you started to become this person that you are now.
For sure.
And it's because of all the other perspectives that people bring in. And so, yeah, I ended up graduating with a chemistry degree, quitting football my sophomore year just because I had to. And that's kind of my academic sort of progression. But during that time, when I really started my entrepreneurial passions, before then, during college, it was a time where I was testing a lot of different things in terms of professions. So one of my first jobs ever, I knew I had to get a job. It was my freshman going to my sophomore year. I'm like, I got to get an internship. Like, I got to get something on my resume. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to get a job post. And so I'm looking on LinkedIn. I'm looking at all this shit. And I'm like, oh, there's this marketing position open in Chicago. I'm like, sweet, bro. I'm like, I fucking Chicago? Like, yeah, I'm from McHenry. Like, I couldn't.
What was the perception of Chicago being from McHenry?
Bro, Chicago was like the land of opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. And that was always my attraction towards like cities like New York, Chicago especially. Right. It's a blessing now that, we're a part of it here. But you don't realize how much that really kind of plays into it until you really get down here and start experiencing it. Like, there's so much hustle and bustle, so much creativity, so many new ideas coming out, and just people fucking grinding, But being from McHenry, bro, like it's always like Chicago, like holy shit, like that's fucking crazy. And I don't think I ever really anticipated living down here for the time that I did, and coming down as much as I do now. But Chicago is sweet. Chicago is sweet when you're growing up. It's always a staple for sure. So I was like, man, I gotta fucking get to Chicago. Like, I gotta live in Chicago. I gotta do an internship. That'd be sweet. So I apply. I hear back. And mind you, like, I've applied to like 20, 30 other places. No one's fucking gotten back to me, right? Because I'm zero experience, right? So, and I have no fucking major either. So I go in, I get a email, and it's like, hey, we'd love to invite you for a first round interview. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. So I put my fucking suit and tie on, like, I'm like getting ready to go. I pull up to this interview, and it's very official. Like, don't get me wrong, it's very official. It was a first round interview going through like characteristics, personality, almost like situations. How would you approach this, whatever? And I'm like, man, it's kind of interesting. Like, I signed up for a marketing position, but they're asking me almost like sales questions. And
I think I know what you're about to say here.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's so then they put you through like, okay, if you pass the first round, the preliminary round, you stay there. And then like 30 minutes later, you get to go into a second round. Okay. So I got accepted in the second round. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. Like, I'm texting my fucking friends. I'm like, let's go. Second round acceptance. So get in the second round, crush it. Then I get into it's like the final round, right?
Right.
The final round, you talk.
This is all on the same day?
It's all the same day.
Okay.
So, and there's like, mind you, there's other people like just around you, standing around like suits and ties, everybody who are applying for the same job. So it's almost like this competition thing. And it's a nice ass office, like nice ass, glass doors, really, really prime spot in Chicago. So I'm thinking, oh my God, like if I hit this third one, I'm gonna be living the dream. Like, it's gonna be awesome. And we're going to the third one, talk to the final boss, end up getting accepted. I went out, right? I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go, whatever. So first day start, that was like a Thursday. First day start was like a Monday, okay? So I get my shit moved into my sister's apartment. She lives in Edgewater at the time. She was going to Loyola. And I was commuting down from the Red Line for the first time on Monday. I'm super excited. I got my bag, I got my lunch. Like, I'm like, dude, this is sweet. Like, this is what Chicago's about. Like, this is what it is. I pull up to the office right in the morning. We're doing like a roll call. I had to pull up at like 7 o'clock. It's fucking crazy. They're like, 7 o'clock, be here, suit and tie, ready to go. I said, fuck yeah, all right, bet. pull up there, fucking take the red line, and I'm in downtown Chicago, pull up to the office. And immediately what goes on, there's like a morning huddle, right? A morning huddle where it's like a big room like this, open floor, and whiteboards everywhere, like all across the walls. Everybody's in suit and tie, formal dress wear. And they're doing a roll call, almost like a huddle of like past sales accolades. I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is crazy. And then, all of a sudden we break into like doing like sales training. So then they give me a script and they're like,
let me pause you really quick.
Yeah.
I want to tell you something really fucking funny.
Yeah.
This identical story happened to me.
Bro, you know what I found out now? I'll tell it at the end of the story, but this is funny.
Finish it, but I couldn't wait. This exact thing happened to me. I quit the next day.
Bro, dude, that shit. So, well, I'll talk about it at the end, but it's so funny, bro. That's so funny that happened to you too, because I know
like the exact thing you're describing is like the exact office where they did they have like a Scottish or British accent? Like
one of them for sure did. And sometimes, bro, like they'll I'll talk about it in a second. But so we're in this they were doing like a sales script, right? And
you're like walking up to people, like waving to do like an exercise.
Yeah, it's like an exercise, like pretending you're like stopping people. Yep. Hello, like have to keep eye contact, whatever. We might have been the same fucking thing, low key. We just didn't even know each other. So this shit happens, right? And right? After that happens, they teach you salesperson, you're fucking taking notes down like a madman. All of a sudden, it's like it's time. Like all of a sudden, like something hits and it's time. Everybody takes off their suits, like doesn't strip down. People go to the bathroom and shit. Puts on like a AT&T shirt. Puts on a Nature Conservancy vest. A Verizon. A fucking Red Cross shirt. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And literally, what this ends up becoming, what I realize is it's literally like if you're in the mall kiosk and those people in the fucking center are trying to wave you down, trying to stop to get your fucking shoe shined, those types of people, like it's that type of shit. But what happens is big companies like that understand that conversion rates, B2C, are much higher than doing B2B like this, right? And so what they will do is they'll hire these companies that will 1099 all these other like young workers, aspirational entrepreneur people, saying that they can have their own business, saying they can grow so much, saying they can fucking live the life they want to live, sell them on this dream.
Right.
When in reality, you have to fucking wave people down in the streets of Chicago.
Go on Michigan Avenue.
Dude,
I got sent out to a Walmart. I was at a Verizon stand in a Walmart.
Bro,
for the first day they sent, I don't even remember the town. I got 3 guys that are like, you're a part of this foursome group. It was me and 3 other guys. I get put in a random guy's minivan. So one of the team leaders drives us to this like down south, probably 30, 45 minutes away, random Walmart.
Bro.
And that was the entire day.
And
I go home to my parents. I'm like, I don't think this is like what I thought it was going to be like at all.
Bro, it's so fucked up that they do that.
I did that as an internship.
Yeah.
Not like, it wasn't like a full time, but it like was a job. That was the craziest thing ever. The funny part is I see those people everywhere now.
100%.
It's still like actively happening.
It is.
I think the level of person that they're able to acquire now is maybe a little bit lower because college level people maybe figured that out by now, but that exact thing you described is like they're the same exact
thing. Bro, it was fucking crazy. And you know what it's called now? Like I did my research, they call it Devil Corp. Like that subsect of like they call it Devil Corp, bro, literally. So long story short, that was kind of the entry point into like my sales understanding, because again, it was that mindset again that I had where, okay, I either fucking quit, right? Which is fine if you did, because that job fucking sucked ass.
Right.
Like it was terrible. But I was like, or I try and learn as much as I can and I try and maximize this opportunity. So I end up staying, right? While everybody else that I was with fucking quits. And I'm like, I'm going to become the best fucking whatever in 2 months that I'm here, right? End up 2 months later, I'm named top rep. I'm top 10 rep in the nation.
No shit.
I'm breaking records for some of the fastest growth, and my job is with Nature Conservancy. So I'm waving people down, having them sign up to donate to the Nature Conservancy. And so I was so just like locked the fuck in. And I really realized at that point in time, like sales is life, and although that Devil Corp, that shit fucking sucks and it's not legitimate. It's really fucked up that people sell them on a dream. You do learn sales. Like and that's probably the hardest form of sales outside of door knocking.
Yeah.
Right. You're in the streets where people don't want to fucking talk to you.
It might almost be harder.
Yeah, bro.
So, you're door knocking, someone's either going to show up or not, and like they have to talk to you.
Yeah.
People on the street do not want to fucking talk to you.
Oh
Don't
my
wanna look
God,
at you.
bro. And in the
You're turning
kiosk
the other
too.
way.
Dude, people are like, who the fuck
I'd actually
are you?
rather be on the street than what I got put at.
Dude, I
I
went
was
out
trying
that,
to
bro.
sell people on trying to switch their internet plan or
Yeah,
their phone plan or
bro.
something, and they're like, "What the fuck? Like, I don't care."
It's fucking crazy. And you know what's so funny is that those people in the company were like viewed as like, bro, that's where you make the money. Like, you go to the AT&Ts or you do the Verizon shit, like you make the money. But yeah, it's insane, bro. So that's where I got my sales experience. Post that, did some marketing. Ended up having her, the company that I worked with, it was a woman, small business in Lake Forest. Ended up helping her expand out to Arizona. And this was another thing. I never did marketing in my life. And, I just took it on the head, figured out how to do it, did my own research, and ended up figuring it out. And I ended up helping her, got some free stuff, figured out how to work with what I got. And then I ended up helping her expand because of the work that I did, expand out into Arizona. And now she's, living a really good life out there. And then after that, that's when I started, I did another like business analytic job. I had it was a 1099 job, but I did a lot of data crunching, software related stuff. So how do I have this software tied to this software? How do I have, I get a big spreadsheet of all these numbers. We have to make this thing pop out this thing. How do I make that happen? How do I have that communicate? So then I got a little bit of a business analyst like tech role. And those were the three, they're all unrelated, but the craziest part about all that was they're still so applicable to what I do today. And I think, as you know too, you're not just a one trick pony here. You have to have all those skill sets to be able to be an effective leader, an effective CEO, move business in the right way. And if you didn't have those traits from experiences that you had in the past, that maybe if I did give up on the sales job, like maybe I wouldn't be as good of a salesperson that I am today. Maybe I won't be able to talk to people as well as I can. So all those things, and I always stress this to people. I'm like, even if it's a shitty opportunity or shitty situation, just maximize it as much as you can until you really can't squeeze any more juice out of it. Because even in the shitty situations, I still think that you can always get something out of it, right? That's always been my mindset. And so I squeezed the fuck out of all of my positions that I was in. And then eventually I ended up studying abroad in London. I came back because of COVID. That was my come to Jesus moment, I would say, because I was drinking every day in London, disgusting amounts. Like, if people like on my Snapchat from home, like they see this shit, or anybody knows from college, like they'll see, bro, I literally did like a 32-day bender. Like,
oh my God.
the way that I did it was to consider it like a continual of the bender. I had to drink a fifth of something, a fifth of liquor of something. So I'm
the whole day,
dude. And the fucked up part, and probably the best part, but the fucked up part was, so I go to this school called University of Roehampton, and it's 7 days a week, right? Normally, the classes that I sign up for, one of them, so I end up getting my schedule configured so that's 2 days a week. So I'm not going to class 5 days out of the week. And then the Thursday class, the one class I did have on Thursday, that class got canceled because the teachers went on strike. So I only have like 2 classes on Tuesday that I have to go to. So literally 6 days of free time. And like, what are you going to do when you study abroad? Like when you're in college, like you're going to get fucked up. You're going to have a good time, So I did some fuck shit out there and ended up traveling a couple countries. Had a really, really good time. But, in the scheme of things, in my drunken haze, I started to realize, like, as I started traveling to these other countries and seeing how these other cultures lived, and, seeing how my town, Lake Forest, McHenry, is such a small blip on the radar of how big this world is. That's when I think it really sparked in me saying, oh shit, like, we can really do something.
Yeah.
Like, we could really do something out here. Like, how am I so worried about, what people are going to think, what people are going to say, what people are going to do, when I have so much opportunity out here and so much real estate and so much land and so much, so many things that I can do.
Yeah.
And I highly encourage anybody, like, once you travel abroad, like, bro, that opens up so much perspective.
My first aha moment came from traveling too.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important.
I completely agree, dude.
Like, you see other cultures, you see the way people carry themselves, the way people live, the other people that are on trips or vacations as well that might not be from that native area, and kind of what they're doing and where they're from, just puts a lot in perspective of how wide the opportunity really is, and how much there is to go after.
And also, I think the other thing that it shows you is like how good we have it here. You know,
for sure.
like you go to a fucking impoverished country, I go to where my dad used to live in South Korea. Like I visited it. Dude had a house the size of this studio here with fucking 6 other brothers. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that dude comes to the US and then builds up a fucking company, a dental insurance manufacturer. Not no cleaners, right? Yeah. Not no fucking 7-Eleven, not none of these, shout out them though, still. Like they're so great. But he decides to go into medical device manufacturing,
super niche.
And I just when I looked out there and I saw where he was from and I saw these other countries that I was living in or that people were living in, I'm like, man, they just love life too with so little sometimes, and it just made me realize, like, bro, I have so much here. If I don't take myself to the next level or do something with my life, I'm a bum, So
you have no excuse in that.
No excuse in the world,
Okay, so you get back from the London studying abroad.
Yeah.
The initial kind of preliminary jobs are over. Where does it happen where you start to, you and your dad are having those conversations? Okay, this may be something that I want to get involved with from more serious. I'm sure you been around the business since you were a kid and grew up with it, right? You understand it. But when did you really start to have those serious conversations? Okay, this might be something.
Yeah. So I think that, when me and my whole life, I never want to be associated with a family business. And I always viewed it as a handout, which was a very, very bad thing to view it as. And, I think my mindset was I always wanted to start something on my own. And I always wanted to create my own path, forge my own path. And when I started going through, one of the ways I did was Valencia, right? My clothing brand that I started when it came back. Took about a year to build, but I built everything in that business. And then post that, once I got it launched out, sold out, that's when I really realized, like, man, I challenged myself. I had a goal and I achieved it. I can do so much more. But that's the point where I was graduating from college. So once I graduated from college, I got a cybersecurity job. I got lucky. Worked at a company called TrustWave. And it was there in the first month that I got somebody, his name is Colin Hamill, good fucking dude, love him. But I started to realize he had the same position that I had, okay? And he got the job because he knew our boss, right? And I felt as if, and Colin, if you're hearing this, I apologize, but I felt as if I was doing more work than Colin, or than him, I don't even doubt him, than him. And, I just felt like he was getting more recognition.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's when that thought really started creeping in my mind. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing this for? Like, I'm getting paid like $55,000 to work here, which is great, first year out. But I'm like, what? I'm going to bust my ass for a year and then all of a sudden get like a 5K raise and then keep on doing that for 15 years until I get $100,000 plus, whatever. Like, that's when it started sinking in. And by God's grace again, bro, my sister had been working at the same time. She was working at a dermatology office, but she was also working part-time with my dad because my dad needed help. Like, a lot of guys were leaving from his shop. A lot of people were quitting. So my sister would go up from Chicago, bless her soul, from Chicago to McHenry, which is like an 1.5-hour drive, go there and commute there like 2 to 3 times a week to help my dad out. So during this time, like, I'm having this realization on TrustWave side, or on my professional side, and then my sister all of a sudden called me one night, and like, this is post Valencia after my first job, and I really just like that
How
feeling.
How long ago is this from now?
That was four in 2 months, probably. Okay. 4 years and 2 months ago. And I still had this fire that I wanted to fulfill. But my sister calls me. She says, yo, Kyle, like, I think dad's going to try and like maybe sell the business or absolve the business or something. You should really consider coming up here and doing it. And I told her, like, on that conversation, she'll tell you, I said, fuck no. Like, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Like, I'm going to do my own thing, because I'm fresh off of Valencia. Like, I'm doing my shit. I'm like, I'm going to fucking blow this brand up, whatever. But then I call my mentor at the time. His name is Miguel. And, I've been keeping in contact with him since the end of college. He used to be my football coach, and he dropped out of the rat race. He used to work at this company called Sage Products, eventually turned into Stryker Medical, one of the best medical device companies in the world. And he worked his way up in that business, eventually quit because he just wasn't seeing the growth that he was talking about. He eventually realized, and I think most people, when they reach their 30s, and it's people who maybe just don't have the external experience or perspective, but end up being where they go through trying to build themselves up in the space that they're in. And then all of a sudden, when it comes to age 30, they realize, oh, fuck, like, these guys don't give a fuck about me. Oh, shit, like, I should have dropped out and did some shit on my own.
A little behind.
I'm a little behind. And then they're like, oh, fuck, I got a wife, I got a kid, I got a mortgage. So I can't physically leave this position anymore. And now they're stuck. So my biggest advice for anybody has always been like, do this shit while you're young and fucking fail and try shit and do shit, you know, and put yourself out there because you never know how it's going to go. So, I ended up talking to Miguel. Miguel dropped out. He's running a screen printing shop, doing a really, really good job. He was on track to make $100,000, doing an Amazon FBA store as well. And I talked to him and I said, yo, bro, like, I got this call from my sister. Like, I just don't know if it's something for me. Miguel was like, look, dude, you have to understand that an opportunity like that is once in a lifetime. Not a lot of people get the opportunity to be able to join a business, let alone a family business. But secondarily, like, you're so young in your career. This was when I was like 22, like maybe just turned 22, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, you're so young in your career. You have so much, even if you do this and it fails, like you have so much more life and you can get another job if you wanted to. So he was like, bro, like you should do it. So after like a week of contemplation, this is me like maybe 2 months into my job now at TrustWave, I call Christina. I tell Christina, I think I'm going to do it, but I want to wait the year because I want to be like, I've left on good terms, you know, with TrustWave, all this. I call Miguel. I'm like, Miguel, I think I'm going to do it, but I'm going to wait a year. He's like, fuck no, bro. You know how much a year's worth? Like a time? Yeah. So I'm like, no, like I'm going back and forth. And I'm like, all right, I'll quit now at TrustWave if you join me in this business. Like if you come on as one of my business partners. And he was kind of like, whoa, like he had to think about it. But, you know, he ended up joining and he ended up trusting me and he took the fucking leap, which I don't know why the fuck he did. You know, we joke around about it today, but he ended up jumping ship, joining the business. I hopped on over with my sister. I quit TrustWave 2 months in. And ever since then, it's been raps. So, super this type of path to get to that point where we were. And my dad, he won't admit it, but he was in a time of need. You know, my dad was at a point in his career where he was already older. Like he can't really like try and fucking reinstill culture to these people. Nor was there really a culture to begin with. Yeah. You know, he can't really build more. He's already 55. You know, he's gone through a whole bunch. Like he's just tired, right? Yeah. But when we came in, like we just 180'd the entire business. And so, you know, I have this philosophy, especially with family business or any business that anybody takes over. It's one of two people, right? It's one type of person is going to be the person that takes that business and just fucking coasts, right? Just keeps it as is, keeps it the same way that it was, reaps the benefit that the predecessor created. Yep. Then there's a second type of person who will fucking take that shit and 100x it, right? And there's people in between too, but those are the two frameworks that I thought. And I said, there's no fucking way that I'm wasting my life, wasting my young 20s, potentially living in Chicago, fucking, you know, chasing the life, doing whatever to be mediocre on this side. So for 4 years, I went in and I just failed, learned, executed, failed, learned, right? And I expedited my process to where now I'm leading the charge in the business. And so that's where we are right now. Yeah. And there's just so much that has happened in the past it's crazy that it's 4 years, November 9th to the date, you know? So,
yeah, that's awesome. What are a couple key things that you and your sister tried to implement or flip immediately from taking over the reins from your father?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things from day one that I realized was, one, there was no culture, okay? There was zero to little infrastructure, and those probably were the first two things that we're really focusing on. I recognized right away, I'm like, look, even if I sell the shit out of this product, if there's no infrastructure on the backside to be able to uphold that flow, we're going to be fucked, right? Sure. You know, customers aren't going to be satisfied, times are going to get hit, et cetera, right? And when you talk about manufacturing as a whole, you know, manufacturing is such a crazy business because with manufacturing, it's probably one of the most complicated businesses, I would say, especially if it's manufacturing both in-house, but also we talk about the industry that I'm in one of the most difficult industries in the world. Medical devices in general, right?
And competitive.
Yeah, exactly. Competitive. There's a lot more regulations than doing just, you know, a screen printing t-shirt business, right? There's a lot more just that goes into it, you know, international regulations, compliance, you know, UDI, and you have to keep up with these things. And so being a smaller business, you know, there was a lot of infrastructure related things that we had to fix right away. And that's when we started implementing, I took a look at, I didn't know shit about manufacturing. Like, you have to understand, like, same with multiple times in my life with any profession that I had zero fucking understanding of this business. I was in proximity from my dad, but I still had, like, I would go there to, like, fill up the candy bowl type shit. Yeah. Like, I would not go there to, like, learn what the fuck he was doing. And so I had zero fucking idea of really what this business entailed or what the products were or whatever. I knew it was dental instruments, but I didn't really know the process or how things ran. So came in, infrastructure was right away, did research, right? Figured out, what do I need as a manufacturer? Like, the same way I do with my clothing business. What do I need to start a clothing business? What do I need to be a strong manufacturer, right? One of the biggest things that people talk about is ERP systems, right? Enterprise resource planning systems. One of the first things that we took a look at, invested into. Then we start taking all the other intangibles, right? And during that same time, right, when we talk about trying to scale in a rapid manner, right? Because I'm not trying to do this for the rest of my life. Like, this is one vehicle for me to then take on for my next pursuits in the future.
Sure.
Is you have to be working 10 different things at one time to really scale effectively, but also move at the pace that you want to move at. So not only am I working on all these infrastructure related stuff with my team, I'm also figuring out what is the relationship between me and my people, right? What is the culture that people feel as soon as they walk in? There was no water stations, something as simple as that. No water stations in the fucking floor. I'm like, how the fuck were these people, like, working? You know what I mean? Like, how the fuck have people been enjoying, like, another aspect to this is that majority of my people are Spanish speaking. So, like, my dad's Korean, has broken English, doesn't know a lick of Spanish. How the fuck have you been managing a business for 25 years without being able to have them express what they want to say? And that for 4 years was a headbutt with me and my dad. Like, my dad was very head down, you fucking work, that's it, you leave, right? Yeah. I was very much, you come in, you work fucking hard, but you do it for a reason, right? Because you care about the people around you, because you care about this vision, you care about the goal, right? My dad was just, you work hard to work hard. Yeah. So, it's a big thing when we talked about that side, like, talk about wages, talk about all these small little details of running a business, and again, these are things that I learned over time. I never ran a business other than Valencia, and Valencia was a small micro version of what I'm doing right now. And it's a completely different type of business. So I just learned as I went, and I failed as I went, and I've made a couple big mistakes, but at the end of it, we're now on track to have, or we were this past year, we had the highest revenue we ever did and the most profitability we ever did in the history of the business under 1 year of full ownership from me. So
what does your dad say about that now?
He's like, that's awesome.
He set you up for that.
Yeah, he's like, that's great. Bro.
That's funny.
And he's like, he won't say, like, to my face that he's, like, proud of me unless my mom's the one that will tell me.
Yeah.
But I think in my mind, the way that I've always viewed it was, like, one, obviously part of why I push myself so hard now is because my why changed a lot. Right, over the years, at the beginning of my careers, what was my why compared to what it is now? Like, one of my biggest whys when I joined the business was I want to be able to retire my dad, right? Like, I want to be able to retire my dad, let him ease up, because I saw the amount of work that he put in over the course of 25 years. Like, this dude was grinding, and it'd be a shame if I wasn't able to do that for him. And I want to do it at a rapid pace. So, 4 years in, I retired him. Boom, check mark. Right. I know that he's probably happy now that he sees that, but give him time back that he wasn't able to do, on the things that he maybe, really wanted to get involved with when he was younger. And again, we go back to that same point of, like, he sacrificed so much in his dreams to be able to make sure that I could live mine.
Yep.
And so, the way that I've viewed the whole business in the 4 years has been, there's thing here that we have to reach, and we have to create the proper plan around it. But as soon as we hit it, it's a check mark. Right? We can celebrate the win for a little bit, but it's a check mark in my mind. Yeah. Right. And once we hit the check mark, it's okay, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? Not getting enamored by success.
Yeah.
Right. Because we could easily, both you and me, see the amount of traction that we're gaining and see the amount of, and be like, wow, this is awesome, and sit.
For sure. Be content. Yeah.
But I think me and you both have the same mindset of, we don't want to be fucking content with just this. Right.
Yeah.
We want to dominate.
We are both, I would say, or speak for both of us, we're both extremely, like, disgustingly not content at all ever, which is why we're able to push. I was trying to find the right way to formulate that. Why we're able to push the way we are.
Yeah.
But to segue off of that, and segue off of 2024, which was your guys' best year ever in history, what does 2025 look like? What do some of the goals look like?
Yeah.
Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So in terms of 2025, some of the biggest goals, obviously revenue and profitability are always main drivers of that. We always want to hit higher numbers than we did, and we're always looking for double-digit increases at this point in time. Whether 5 years from now I sell the business or I stay on the board of directors and collect, benefit from that, those are one of the two paths that we're going to figure out. But in 2025, revenue-wise, we're definitely trying to at least have double-digit increases on percentages. And then also profitability, it's such a huge component to this because we've been able to reinvest. I did the highest revenue, highest profitability with the most amount of expenditures we've ever had in the history of the business.
Sure.
Reinvesting back into the people, reinvesting into a gym upstairs, doing a podcast studio, starting to roll out painting and redoing the entire infrastructure, all the benefits for the first time, and it's just a testament to again, the culture building and the infrastructure that we have built. But 2025, we're looking to dominate, bro. Like with the whole thing with instruments and dental instruments in general, like I know a lot of people don't know about dental instruments, but super commoditized space. It's almost similar to the way you have no brand loyalty to, let's just say, your toilet paper or your paper towels or, where you get those types of commodities. So people will buy shit just because it's cheap, and it's almost a very misconstrued sort of thought process because you're buying a medical device, right?
Yes.
So one of the biggest things that we're trying to compete with in this year is truly take away the market share from the biggest motherfuckers in this industry. This past year was a really good testament to that. We grew from a social following from like 300 to like we're at almost 1,200 now in like 6 months, 7 months. Our marketing, right, is next level compared to what other people are doing. Medical devices.
I was going to say, talk about that for a second. Like how important is Kyle's personal brand, PDG marketing, advertising, how you guys are kind of diversifying that realm for you guys?
For sure. I think it's one of the cheapest ways to gain the highest amount of ROI, right? You talk about being able to pay, let's just say somebody like yourself or another person, right? X amount of dollars per month. I can guarantee you put yourself out there, or even if you don't have a team around you, you're just posting on social media, spreading your message, spreading your vision, doing some basic shit. There's so much free software out there, CapCut, like all these different things. Bro, it's the cheapest way to be able to get the most exposure and the highest amount of ROI, right? Especially if you're building a brand.
Yeah.
If you don't give a fuck about that, whatever, right? But if you're trying to build a solidified brand, an actual image, an actual thing that people are going to buy into that's going to last long term, marketing is one of the most important things to do, period. That and sales and R&D. But marketing, I would say, for me at least, with the personal brand, PDG, the way that I have viewed marketing is how can we make sure that one, the people that we want aligned with our business can get fed what they really want to see, okay? And for me, since day one, coming from that fashion side, like I still love fashion, I always knew that our products were a little bit different, right? We have a patented line of products that nobody else has. We also have essentials that are high integrity. And I knew that we had to portray these products in a way where nobody's ever seen them before. You don't look at a dental instrument and say, oh, that's fucking cool. That's sexy. Like that was never done before. People, again, you just buy the shit online, right? It's like toilet paper, paper towels. What we did in this past year, and we saw proven success with it, is we turned it into a consumable good that people actually want to buy because of the brand, okay? So that chain on the table there, we turn that chain into a sexy piece of item that people see and say, oh shit. Like, and the key to the marketing aspect of things too is, how do you get people outside of the industry loving your shit too?
To care about that.
They care about that shit too. And from a creative side, you make shit look like a fucking Dior commercial on a thing like a dental instrument. Doesn't matter what the fuck commodity it is. It could be a mug, it could be a chain, it could be a plant, right? You have that feeling or that look and that style. Anybody who appreciates that beyond your space will fucking love it. And if you can get it to be beyond your individual space that you're in, your industry, and have people outside of that love your shit, you're creating a brand, right? And so super important for sure. Personal brand as well. So important, I think, in today's day and age. I think people are very afraid to try and post, and I've been victim of this too, to be able to post about themselves or post, about certain aspects or things that they want to talk about or, but what I'll tell you is the personal brand is also probably one of the fastest ways that you can get ROI for the thing that you care about, which is the business, because they'll associate Lorenzo with Link. Okay. And Lorenzo, people know Lorenzo runs Link. You put more people out, random people start seeing Lorenzo. Oh, what does he do? Oh, he's the president of Link. Oh, shit. What is it? Oh, Link's badass, And same thing with Power Dental, And I think what we're trying to do with the personal brand is really showcase that even in a space that's so rigid, that's so vanilla, so proper suit and tie, briefcase type people, there's people like us, right? And there's these younger, hungry, disruptive type company that's trying to come at everybody's necks, all these big corp necks that have been here for hundreds of years doing the same shit, reaping the benefit for what, right? When in reality, for us, we're the fucking underdogs and we're the ones that actually care about you. These guys don't give a fuck about you. Those guys higher up, they don't give a fuck about you. They just care about the dollars.
Right.
Every dollar in that comes from me and you is so much more valuable than every dollar that comes in for Google, So that's what we're trying to do in a space that has been so untouched for so long, and do it the right way, right? And do it in a way where it's my own, it's our team's own way of doing things, and not conforming to the way that, these guys have done it this way, we should probably follow that.
Sure.
Nah, fuck that noise. Like, do it your way. Right? Because that's the only way you'll stand out.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm trying to show everybody that even though I'm in the medical device business and medical device space, I'm the owner of a multi-million-dollar business. You still can have a fun personality. You can still, fuck around and have a good time. You can still drink a beer. You can still do all these things. And at the end of the day, what I'm really trying to show is if you have an inkling, a thought that this is something that you want to do, if you have the right fucking vision, the work ethic, and the fucking just intent behind it, you'll get it the fuck done.
Right.
Right? I am such a firm believer of that. And I feel like so many people play this victim card, which, play victim card when you've earned victim card. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
My dad came from shit and built up a business. Your dad came from shit and built up a business. Anybody who has seen that knows, right? If you're fucking watching this, and you're sitting on your couch, then you've seen the people put in the work, or you have a house over your head, you have fucking clothes on your back, go do something with your life. Don't just sit there and be a fucking
really
bum.
No excuse anymore.
There's no excuse anymore.
That brings up my last point. I was going to say, as we wrap this up, you're already kind of preaching what I'm about to ask. For anybody that's watching this, feels like, they know they could do more. They have something bottled up inside of them that they don't know how to get out. They might want to start a business. They have a family business they're not really involved in. What would you say to that person? Or maybe what would you say to that Kyle 4 or 5 years ago?
I would say the biggest thing is don't listen to the fucking exterior noise, right? Listen to the person yourself inside, because the person that's going to allow you to win or lose is solely going to be the person that you're looking at in the mirror. Okay.
Right.
And if I realized what I really knew now when I was 16, 15, 14, 17, right? I'd be a fucking billionaire by now, I know everybody fucking says that, but I would be, because when I started understanding that when you have that drive and that fuel and that want, 90% of the time, the reason why you don't do it is because of exterior noise, or maybe it's a lack of confidence in yourself, but a lot of times it's because of exterior noise. And
Sure.
You're comparing to people and you're like, oh, well, I don't want to be judged, or, what happens if I fail? Like, what happens if you fucking succeed, right? What happens if you actually get it done? And you will never know. And I think my whole life has been an example of this. You will never fucking know whether you will win or you will fail unless you actually go and attack it with 100%. Right. And that's what it comes down to. So anybody watching, you got something fucking pent up inside of you, anything that you want to really be trying out or doing, go fucking do it. Go take that dance class, go to that fucking, go figure out how to knit, go fucking get your LLC and start a business. Like, the world is so expansive and you never know when the fuck your last day is going to be. You want to fucking be sitting on your deathbed or get hit by a fucking truck knowing that you weren't able to do the shit that you wanted to do, or try at least. Not me, not you.
Right.
Right. So I hope everybody fucking watching this shit also understands that and gets out their ass and fucking starts to change the world, So
let's go.
That's it, bro.
Listen, Kyle, the conversation was unreal. I knew it was going to be. Appreciate you as always.
Appreciate you for having me.
Link Live, episode 3. That's a wrap. Kyle, thank you guys so much.
Of course,
All right.
of course. A lot more to talk about, bro. Appreciate you.